welcome everybody. I'm sorry we normally keep the trains running on time. Apparently our keynote sessions went a little bit over our allotted 10 o'clock ending time, so apologize for starting this a little late, but we do have a little cushion on the back end before the HBX session that's going to follow us here in the same room. It's my tremendous pleasure. I'm Deborah Quazzo, for those who don't know me, and it is I'm the co-founder of the ASU GSV Summit. And it's my incredible pleasure to actually interview Bob Kustra, who is the president of Boise State University. For any of you who saw my promotional email, I said since I run it, I get to do self-promotional emails. My self-promotional email about the session Bob and I were doing. We call this the Cinderella story of a turnaround of a university. And it really is quite stunning statistics, and I'll just sort of review a few of them. Today, Boise State has close to 24,000 students. They actually had an enrollment increase in 2016 of 8%, undergrads up 6%, graduates up 23%, grad students. That's 52% increase in enrollments in less than a decade. And that's in an environment where college enrollments nationally this year were down a little over 1%, close to 1.5% actually. So most universities are suffering from all kinds of constraints as it relates to declining interest in coming to their campuses at the time when Boise State's actually seeing quite the opposite. And that's against the backdrop of Idaho has 17 million people. And is that right?
1.7.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1.7. Oh my God, I'll miss the thing. I was going to say 17 million, 1.7, I'm sorry. Right, exactly, sorry. That was a typo on my notes, oh, sorry. And which translates into 19 people per square mile. Which is remarkable. So it's all kinds of challenges in driving demand and supply and all that sort of thing. So where I actually do want to start, however, is I'm so intrigued by Bob's background. He spent quite a bit of time in my backyard, which is Chicago. And I just have to kind of start with the curious question of, Bob was the lieutenant governor of Illinois for 2 consecutive terms to Jim Edgar, who is one of the few governors of Illinois who actually is not currently in jail. So,
that's right.
So, and prior to that, Bob spent many years in the Illinois legislature. In our conversations, I found out he actually proposed a very radical restructuring of Chicago public schools in the K-12 sector that ultimately didn't pass, but was very radical and progressive at the time. And so what I first have to ask you is, what did the rough and tumble world of Illinois politics teach you about being the president of a university?
Well, in Idaho, it taught me to do everything I didn't do in the state of Illinois. In the state of Illinois, which is rough and tumble politics, I found myself constantly in very difficult and sometimes vicious battles over public policy. That's just the way Illinois is. And I moved out to this very civil, low-keyed environment in Idaho where everybody's nice under the most adverse of circumstances. In legislative battle, when 2 parties are battling over issues, there's a nicety about the way they go about it that just blows me away. I'm used to seeing groups of legislators storm the podium when they didn't get their way back in Illinois, and here in Idaho, it's much different. So it required somewhat of an adjustment. I had to learn to keep my mouth shut more than I did in Illinois, for sure. But it's been, frankly, the tools and the competencies a university president needs today, getting to the real answer here, Deborah, is all about what a public official has to do almost every given day. And anyone aspiring to be a president better be prepared for the ability to be psychoanalyzed by every little thing you've said, by every media outlet there is, and you better be very good at articulating your vision, your mission, what you stand for, and how you're going to go about it. And more than anything else, that's been of enormous benefit. And every search consultant I've talked to who's called me about another job someplace always focuses first on my public sector experience. And it applies mainly to public universities, by the way. It doesn't translate over to private universities. In fact, I've been shoved out of some searches on the private sector because they didn't trust this guy who had actually been in the raw business of politics, right? But in the public sector, everyone knows you have to find your way to the Capitol for funding, and you better know how to relate to these folks. And once you've played in that group and you're a member of the club, you're a member of that club for life.
Your instincts are good.
Yeah.
So why don't you you did quite a number of things simultaneously in transforming Boise State. So why don't you, in your mind, what were the real key levers you had to pull to kind of get the university moving on a positive trend and better establishing itself?
Well, first of all, when I got there, there was only 7% of the student body from out of state.
Right.
And so we had all, and that's not only a problem when it comes to diversity, it's a problem when it comes to funding,
right,
because you don't have the advantage of the out-of-state tuition helping to defray your expenses. So it all started with a football game. It was 2007. It was the Fiesta Bowl, and we managed to beat Oklahoma by 1 point, 43-42. Those numbers stay with me for the rest of my life. I love to repeat them over and over again. And the fact is that I noticed by the time I got home, I had 300 emails. And they came from all over the country, and they were people congratulating us for, the David slaying Goliath. And I thought, if we could take the football team to the national stage, why can't we take the rest of the university to the national stage? And let's start with figuring out where do these football coaches get their players? And where they were getting them from was out of state. They were getting them from California and Washington and Oregon, up and down the West Coast. They were basically picking up all the people the Pac-12 missed, that they should have recruited, but they didn't. And our coaches were smart enough to pick those guys up, and the rest is history. So we decided to take our recruitment counselors into the same places where these star athletes were graduating, and we figured, why can't we pick up the academic all-stars from these states that did us such a favor as far as the football program is concerned? So this first year, our first year students, 41% of our students are from out of state. Mm-hmm. And along the way, we're great at stealing ideas. It's nothing more gratifying than to steal an idea from somebody who helps you out. I mean, not as though you're stealing behind their back, but the University of Oregon, which of course is called in some places the University of California at Eugene. The University of Oregon, we called on them. How'd you guys do that? How did you manage to turn Eugene into this popular destination for Californians? And we sought advice from their enrollment management people. We adopted much of what they suggested. And again, the rest is history. We have this incredible out-of-state enrollment. Along the way, it increases GPAs, it's increased test scores, so you get this incredible ability of Boise State to promote itself and rebrand itself. And we rebranded our honors college along the way.
Yep.
That was key, because there was no question that if you're going to attract some of the best and brightest, you have to have a place for them to light. You have to be able to compete with, let's say, a small liberal arts school. I mean, some of the best liberal arts schools around us, like the University of Puget Sound, Willamette University in Oregon, those are great schools. And if someone's going to give up the chance to go to there to come to a Boise State, they're going to have something to go for. And rebranding our honors college really did the trick for us. At the same time, we recognized, getting back to that Fiesta Bowl game, we won that game with trick plays, okay? The commentators, there were two kinds of commentators following that game. There were the commentators who were the old school boys who said, trick plays, they ought to play football the way they normally play football, and those kinds of things wouldn't happen, all right? And then there were the other guys who said, wow, those are really innovative, that's innovative play calling. That is amazing. Well, at that moment, it occurred to us, if we can do innovative play calling on a football field, why can't we do that in our academic establishment? Why can't we figure out a way to jump out of the box? If you look at the way universities are organized, tenure and promotion, the incentives that drive faculty to do innovative things are all granted by department and by college. In other words, in silos. And faculty are in some cases even fearful to jump out of that silo and move to another place at the university where they might have the opportunity to collaborate with a totally different discipline, but create something very new and different. And we thought a long time about various incentives that we could offer. We tried various incentives. In the end, it was the College of Innovation and Design that really did the trick for us, in the sense that it was innovative play calling on the academic side. It was creating a college that clearly had the opportunity to I guess you say, incentivize faculty to jump out of these silos. As a matter of fact, the summer before we actually put that college into existence, I had a number of faculty come into my office, and they, in a sense, complained. You know, we'd give anything. We'd give anything to be able to get out of the one college that we are responsible for. And if only we had some mechanism to do that. Of course, that's where Gordon Jones comes in, who had been the director at the Harvard Innovation Lab, and he is the dean of that college now. And now, of course, we have deans from all over the campus who are working with that college and creating new programming.
So how, I mean, Gordon's in the audience here somewhere, but how did you attract, I mean, that was a big leap from the Harvard Innovation Lab to Boise State,
Well,
to say the least.
Right. Gordon and Karen had visited Boise the summer before, and they really liked Boise. It's a beautiful town. It's a great place to live. It's just so manageable as a place to live. And then what happened to Gordon is that 2 or 3 summers ago, he was shoveling 38 inches of snow in Boston, okay? And we created this College of Innovation and Design at the same moment that snow was coming down. And Gordon and I
innovative play calling.
That's innovative play calling, that's right. And Gordon and I talked, and 3 days later, that's about all the time it took for us to realize that we really had something going here. And again, that college has created one of the most interesting degrees, I think, that we certainly have on our campus, if not anywhere, and that's the degree in gaming, interactive media, and mobile. And obviously, it's a degree that trains and educates students for managing the technologies that are in our lives and careers, with a particular emphasis on augmented and virtual reality. Anthony Ellertson, who's sitting right there, who came to us from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, is the guy that runs that program, and our enrollment numbers are such that Anthony doesn't know what to do with the majors that we're getting. And about 4 different disciplines are involved in that degree. So you've got psychology, you've got computer science, you've got graphic arts. I met with some of Anthony's students just 2 weeks ago, and it reminded me of reading Walter Isaacson's book on Steve Jobs, where he talks about, you know, I met up at the intersection of arts and technology. In Reed College, he took that calligraphy course, and all you have to do is open your Mac to see what that brought us. And you talk to these kids, and these kids are artists, they're humanists, but they're computer scientists at the same time. And there simply wasn't any way on our campus anyway to have the opportunity for students to jump out of those silos. We had independent study, and we had interdisciplinary study, and with all due respect, the number of students who would go after those approaches were very small. But you create something as bold and venturesome as the College of Innovation and Design, and it's been a remarkable success.
Well, also part of that innovative play calling, clearly you guys have also been very attuned to the job market, right? Which I presume includes Anthony's work, because all of that activity certainly has got to be leading into good paying jobs. So in looking at what are some of the other, it appears that you did a whole series of curricular changes to both allow collaboration across disciplines, but also to create students who could actually walk out of the university and be employed in in many ways. So how did you think about that? How do you guys continue to think about the morphing of the curriculum to address the future job market, et cetera?
Well, the first thing we did is call in the employers. We just called in employers to sit down with us and talk about what are you looking for? What do you want? And how can we restructure, refashion what we're doing to get there? And in doing that, we learned a number of things. But one of the things that I learned, and of course, I'm a liberal arts graduate, so I will always believe that there is a role for the liberal arts graduate in this techno society in which we live, and especially in the tech industries which we serve in the Boise Valley. And so my concern was whether or not we were doing a great service to our liberal arts majors by not better preparing them for the workplace. And so what we did, first of all, is create something called Bridge to Career, which is part of the College of Innovation and Design. It's part of our College of Business and Economics. And Bridge to Career are sets of short courses, badge courses of one kind or another, where we encourage students who are majoring in history or majoring in political science or whatever it is, but who really haven't yet thought of what that first job interview is going to be like when somebody says, do you know how to read a balance sheet? Do you know a P&L statement? How does that work? And so we created these Bridge to Career courses to do that, and we did that internally with our own faculty. But then along the way, and of course Patrick is here today and he's been on our campus, but along the way in comes HBX, which invited us to participate in their program. And now we have an opportunity for our undergraduates who are these non-business majors to actually take 9 hours of credit in accounting, finance, and management, where they get a certificate of readiness from the Harvard Business School. And if I've said that once in the course of a week, I probably say it about 100 times, Patrick, because to me, it's like, why didn't I have something like that when I was leaving my undergraduate experience? And so it's just a great opportunity for us to prepare our students for the real world of work, right, while at the same time, the real world of work will benefit from the kinds of critical thinking skills that I really believe you can learn from a history major. And if you don't believe me, talk to one of our professors of practice, Walter Robb, who was the co-CEO of Whole Foods until just recently, a history major from Stanford, who is, living example of how you can take a liberal arts degree and make something of it. But in this day and age, employers are asking tougher questions of students, so we have to be prepared to do tougher things. One other example I want to use that I think is really a cool example of how you convert a liberal arts major to an employable major right there in the first job interview. We have an anthropology degree, like a lot of places do. Anthropology degrees are great. The only problem with an anthropology degree is there's not enough jobs out there once they get graduated to fall into an anthropology career. But what do anthropologists do? They're digging down into past cultures, trying to learn more about those who came before us and apply it to who we are today to better understand who we are. Well, in a way, we have some marketing firms in Boise, one of which I deal with very closely, and they're digging down. They're doing the same thing. They're digging down into today's culture, trying to figure out who the customer is, how to better serve the customer, how does our advertising sync with what the customer wants. And so, wait a minute here. Isn't there a way we could take the anthropology major and prepare the anthropology major for a career in marketing? So Gordon put together a certificate called Design Ethnography. And with the complete support and robust participation of the anthropology department, and I emphasize that because sometimes that's not easy. These liberal arts folks like to think that they're pure and simple and don't you touch my degree or don't mess with my degree. In the case of the anthropology department, they were more than willing to participate with Gordon and to create this certificate that opens up the eyes of students, first of all. So they now start thinking, whoa, I never thought about that. I could go to work for a marketing agency. I could go to work in a company that has a marketing department. And before you know it, that program has been off and running. I had a chance to talk to some of the students who took it this year, and it just opened completely different horizons for them, and I'm confident it will open up really serious horizons at the workplace as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you hear the same stories around sociology. It's fascinating how important those degrees have become related to the modern media and things like that.
Psychology is another one where, everybody complains there's too many psychology majors out there, but there's some real serious, what I would call critical thinking skills, survey research that psychologists do, undergraduate experiences, hands-on learning. You get a psychology major and you've got somebody who is going to be able to think themselves through some really serious challenges that a company might have.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Actually, Jeremy Balinson from Stanford just did a keynote on virtual reality, and he's a psychology major, so it's great. Yeah. You said recently that your upgrade, Boise State's upgrade to a doctoral research university status was the high, that you felt was the greatest accomplishment of your career as a university president. Give us context. Why is that so critical in the sort of forward movement of Boise State? And give me the bigger picture of why that was such an important piece of what you've been trying to do. Sure.
Well, first of all, in 2005, we set our sights on that goal. Yep. We were a master's granting university. I think when I got to Boise State, there might have been 2 or 3 PhDs. It was a doctorate and 1 or 2 PhDs. And we just decided, since we were serving this tech economy, that first of all, we have a responsibility to serve the region, and we're going to serve it in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, and math. So we started adding these PhDs in engineering and in the sciences, and today we have about 11 of them. They're spread across, as I said before, the STEM disciplines. What it does for the university, and some of this, by the way, is just the business of marketing and branding.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you, obviously there are some high quality liberal arts colleges and universities in America that do not need to be doctoral research universities to be successful and to be able to recruit the finest students in the land. But for a public university in a flyover city, which we used to call ourselves, I don't think we're as much of a flyover city. You know, you fly over Boise to get to Seattle and Portland. Not so much anymore, but in those days when we were a flyover city, how does a university like Boise State distinguish itself? Well, the good news is we had Micron technology at one end of the valley that was huge, and we had HP bringing its entire printing division into the valley at one point, and then all kinds of spin-offs of software engineering firms taking off across the valley. And you put all these folks together and you realize we've got the critical mass here to really build a university that serves this tech economy. So from an outside standpoint, serving those you serve, that's why we did it. But internally, when it comes to recruiting faculty, and our provost, Marty Schimpf, is here today, he knows that when you get down to the department level and you start recruiting these faculty, they're looking for places where they can meet up with colleagues who have enough stature that together they can apply to the National Science Foundation, they can apply to the National Institute of Health, and they can be successful at getting grants. And the doctoral research designation, when the university is sitting there on the desk of the NSF, or the application for the grant is sitting there, and they're looking at who you are, and they know, oh, they're the ones that just got the doctoral research designation. As a matter of fact, there's 3 levels of doctoral research designation, and in getting ours, we got the first level, but we came close to getting the second level. So the next time Carnegie evaluates us, we will clearly be in the middle level. It would be some time before we'd ever get up there to the large public or private research university for that matter. But it's enormously advantageous when it comes to hiring faculty. We just created a new PhD in biology, ecology and evolutionary biology, and it's a great degree. It's very innovative, but most importantly, this time around, I don't do this normally, but I interviewed all the candidates. And there were like 8 of them for 2 positions. And what blew me away is that tenured faculty from some really prestigious universities out east were applying for this job. And when I asked them, you know, you have to be careful how you ask this when you're the president of the university. You don't want to put yourself down. What are you doing applying to us? But you know, how does what's your interest in us? And the answer basically was, do you know what it's like to live in a department where there's 39 other people just like me, and when it comes to fighting for funding or fighting for reputation or fighting for students or grants and whatever, I don't have to stand a prayer. But you guys are this niche university that has this great opportunity for collaboration because you're still small enough, you know, not too small, but small enough where we can work together. And now you've got the doctoral research designation, and the rest is history. And we were able to make some great choices for those 2 new positions that we created.
It's fantastic. I mean, certainly, you know, certainly it's all about talent, and it would appear that you guys have had a massive sort of elevation of the talent element of the university on all levels. So the ASU GSV Summit, obviously we have a bit of a focus on not only innovation, but technology innovation. And so how important to Boise State is online learning? I mean, obviously the HBX is a great example, but how, in the bigger picture, how important is the online learning component and the sort of utilization of technology in getting better learning outcomes and you know, expanding your footprint, things like that?
Well, one of the great challenges that we have, and I guess anybody has, is to get a student out in 4 years. The longer a student stays, the more expensive it is, and I don't have to tell anybody. In fact, today there's an article in the Washington Post about the middle class, forget the lower class or whatever you want to call them, but the middle class being frozen out of colleges and universities in America. And so the issue for us is How can we promise a parent we're going to get them out in 4 years? And we do that if students and parents are focused on it. But one of the ways we do it is with online education. Most people think of online education as serving people someplace else, and we do a lot of that. We have 30 fully online degrees. Mark Wheeler, who runs our program, is also here at the conference and here today. And he has really led this effort to ramp up our online programming. It's fair to say that most of our online students off the campus are older students. It's still very difficult to go into a high school and say, hey, I got a deal for you. Would you like to take a fully online degree and stay at home with your mom and dad for the next 4 years? Huh? Why would I want to do that? And so that's not going to work. We have thousands of students who still want the same kind of undergraduate experience most of the people in this room had when they went to college. But getting back to that same online opportunity, around 60%, I think, of our undergraduate students take one online course, either a semester or a year, and they do that because of the flexibility. Our students are now working in the neighborhood of, I hate to say this, but 20 to 30 hours a week and carrying a full load. That's the way they're paying for tuition these days. So while they're doing that, it's not easy to get to that class you need as a part of your major or whatever, it's your foundational course or whatever. So you have this great opportunity to take it online, and you could take it at midnight, you can take it at 6 a.m., 3 in the morning, whenever you want to do it. It's been an enormous help in moving students through the pipeline more quickly. We have good friends from San Diego. This young man who got a finance degree from us did it in 3 years using summers and online education. And I asked him, I said, why don't you slow down a little bit and enjoy life? And he said, my parents don't have the money for the 4th year. It's that simple. I got to get out of here in 3 years. And we allowed him to do that thanks to online education. In the meantime, we're hitting returning adults. How many folks are out there who just started, never finished? And our online programming is obviously having great success with that population of students.
Wonderful. Well, I think we're almost to our timeline, but I have one last question. Just want you to comment on a bigger, on a sort of an overarching topic that's gotten a lot of attention in the last week or so, whenever that was announced, which was the Purdue purchase of the Kaplan University for $1, and the political, or at least the faculty political firestorm that has followed, and just curious for your thoughts on that transaction and what that could mean for public universities nationwide, et cetera. I know you guys are actually in a research partnership you're part of a research grant that with Purdue and others. So,
well, thanks for the question.
And Mitch is also a politician, I might add,
He
right?
is, that's right. He's the former governor of Indiana. I'd like to see the reverse of what happened in Indiana. Let me explain myself. So right now, I'm not too worried about the Pac-12, from the University of Washington down to the University of Arizona. All of those universities, I want the University of Washington's endowment, okay? $3 billion, I think, at the last call. Mine's $100 million. We don't have enough scholarship funding for either needy students or high-ability students. We don't have the ability to build buildings the way we would like to, although we've used our students and created a strategic facilities fee to do that and bonded a number of our buildings. So I think the coming struggle, and there was an article in our daily newspaper in higher education, is a Chronicle of Higher Education, and just last week they ran an article, Will Public Colleges Survive? And they used the Pennsylvania 14-state college system as an example. These are a lot smaller than we are, but they raised the question, can the middle level, the mid-major level, as they call it in athletics, can the mid-major level universities survive at a time when states have withdrawn their support? And we're making it, I mean all of us, not just Boise State, we're making it, but not very well. And I really worry about what the future holds. The only way we're making it is increasing tuition every year. We hiked tuition another 3.5%. We wanted 5.1. The board would only give us 3.5. So to think that Mitch can actually buy a company in the private sector, I would suggest if Jeff Bezos can buy the Washington Post, then I want to talk to him about buying Boise State.
You heard it here, folks.
Lock, stock, and barrel.
Anyone has an angle on
And
Jeff,
I don't want to limit this to Jeff. We could have an auction, okay? We can have an auction, and I'm not really joking about this. I'd like to see some tech person come in to the state of Idaho, sit down with the governor, and say, you know what? You're not handling higher education very well. With Medicaid challenges and correction challenges and transportation networks falling apart, you don't have the funding for the future of public higher education. So let us take one off your hands. Let us create a new third sector in higher education that would allow us to flourish and prosper. All kinds of ramifications for that we don't have time to talk about today, but hey, if the Washington Post changed hands, I don't know why a Boise State University couldn't change hands.
On that note, which was pretty spectacular, thank you so much.
Thanks, Deborah.